Angela approves of us, I told Bella once she was out of earshot. And the rest of them? She asked, glancing nervously around her. Angela approves, I repeated, Bella's face growing redder by the second. But don't worry about them, okay? If you let what others think get to you, you'll never have any peace. Trust me, I have a lot of experience. Yeah, I guess you do, she said, returning her gaze to mine. Her eyes looked sad and concerned, and the last thing I wanted was her worrying about the oddities of my life that's grown so used to. The only thing I cared about was that Bella seemed to accept me so entirely, and I was eager to get back our earlier light-hearted mood. So, Bella who wants to travel the world and read the classics, shall we continue? If you really want to, but I still don't know why you find me so interesting. You're a mystery to me, Bella. A mystery that keeps getting more and more beautiful with each piece of the puzzle I unlock. She blushed deeper than I'd seen all day, her eyes darting to her hands, which she'd started to fidget with on the table. If you say so, she whispered, and although she still sounded like she doubted me, along with her blush, she was now grinning ear to ear. Okay, I'm guessing you're not particularly into sports. What tipped you off? She asked sarcastically, meeting my eyes again. Oh, just a hunch. Bet that breaks Charlie's heart a little. I watch baseball with him sometimes. And football if I'm really bored, though I gave up trying to understand the rules years ago. What activities were you interested in when you were younger? I took ballet for a while, but I was never any good at it. I think Mom was hoping to find something that would help my coordination, but the year I twisted my ankle at the big recital, she decided it was probably a lost cause. Anything else? I tried ice skating once. And how did that go? She considered putting me back in ballet. I laughed loudly, and was happy to see her laughing with me. With every question I asked, she grew more and more animated. At times she seemed confused by some of the things I wanted to know, but in the end I think she was actually flattered, which only encouraged me to ask her more. Returning to her list of favorites, I rattled off a few quick inquiries I'd been wondering about. What's your favorite season? In Phoenix, fall. In Forks, summer. Favorite type of food? Italian. Favorite drink? Lemonade. Ice cream? Cookies and cream. Animal? Dogs. Gemstone? Topaz. I was about to ask her favorite flower when I noticed she'd started blushing again, and looked away. Did that embarrass you? I asked, baffled. No, she said shyly, still not meeting my eyes. What's wrong? Nothing. Now aren't you going to ask my favorite author or TV show? No. I want to know why you're blushing. No reason. It just made me think of something. Forget it, it's not a big deal. Please? I asked, trying to get her to look at me again. My favorite author is Jane Austen. But I want to know why your favorite gemstone is topaz, and why it seems to have upset you. I'm not upset, she said, feigning nonchalance and still stubbornly refusing to look up. Tell me, I pleaded, wishing I knew how to use the dazzling skill she'd insisted allowed me to get my way. After a few more silent moments, she sighed and whispered, "It's the color of your eyes today." If it were possible for me to blush in return, I would have been as red as her. Instead I sat there, grinning and staring at her, happier than I'd been all day. It was a silly thing to be so excited about, but something about the sincerity in her voice was making me positively ecstatic. She still hadn't looked up, and when I heard her heartbeat speed up again and her breathing hitch, I realized there was more. I suppose if you asked me in 2 weeks, I'd say onyx. I almost laughed as I remembered just how well she knew me, even down to the pattern of my changing eyes. As much as I was enjoying the moment, I made myself continue, in hopes that she would look at me again. I was already missing the intensity of staring into her beautiful brown eyes. "What kinds of flowers do you prefer?" I asked, happy when she immediately lifted her head. "Cactus flowers," she said, a hint of her earlier enthusiasm coming back. Why am I not surprised? I teased, rolling my eyes. I was grateful that we had the next class together, since I was nowhere near ready to let her go. I continued asking about her time in Phoenix as we walked to biology, and didn't stop until Mr. Banner arrived. When I realized today was going to be another movie day, I instinctively moved my chair a few inches away from Bella's, not that I thought it would help much. Just as I knew it would, the second the lights went out, the electric current that seemed to flow between us was reignited, intensified by the darkness. I remembered how wonderful it had felt to graze my fingertips along her cheek last night while she slept, recalled the silky texture of her hair against my hand. I wanted to reach out to her, to hold her hand in the dark room. When she leaned forward and placed her chin on her arms, I fought against the urge to do the same. It would have been so easy to fold my arms beside hers, letting our skin touch and giving in to the electricity. Easy, but not smart. I stayed planted firmly in place in my seat, watching her as she stared straight ahead and at least pretended to watch what was on the TV. When the lights came back on, she glanced at me, and I hoped my internal battle didn't show too greatly on my face. I couldn't bring myself to begin questioning her again on the way to gym. I was still so lost in my desire to touch her. Right before she turned to leave, I gave in just slightly, brushing the back of my hand to her delicate face. I was certain no matter how many times I felt her perfect skin on my granite hand, I would never tire of the feeling of peace it brought me. I watched through her classmates' eyes as she stayed, thankfully, out of the way throughout gym. Mike was looking particularly sour, but as long as he kept Bella from inadvertently injuring herself, I figured I couldn't fault him too much. When class was over, I made my way back to the gymnasium, and was thrilled to see her brilliant smile the moment our eyes met. If every day could feel this wonderful, endlessly repeating high school might not be as boring as it once was. On the drive home, I noticed the way Bella's eyes turned melancholy as she glanced up at the overcast sky. Remembering her enthusiasm when she spoke of her life in Phoenix, I asked her what she missed most about it. I listened in rapt attention as she described things I could barely imagine. Obviously, I hadn't spent much time anywhere the sun was out on a near-daily basis, and as hard as I tried, I couldn't remember what it had felt like on my human skin. I was filled with wonder as I listened to her talk about the beauty of the sun cascading across the hills and valleys of the place she loved so deeply. With each passing moment, her eyes seemed to light up more and more, and even when the rain began to pour around us, nothing dampened her spirit. It was that spark, that passion, that gave me the confidence I'd been so desperately searching for as I'd spoken to my family about taking her to my special hideaway on Saturday. There was no amount of pain too great that could stop me from seeing her face lit by the sun. Listening to her, I started to realize that one of the things I felt guiltiest about was the fact that her wanting to be with me was, in essence, taking the sun away from her. Although I was still afraid she would be repulsed by my true appearance, she'd made it clear she wanted to spend time with me, and I was just beginning to understand how much she missed the joys of a sun-drenched day. Putting all my fears aside, I was determined to give her at least this one day where she could have both. When she'd finished describing in perfect detail the beauty of the Arizona landscape, I asked her about the house she'd grown up in. She laughed, admitting she was a bit of a pack rat, which struck me as odd, since she'd barely decorated her room here. Then I realized the probable reason why. This wasn't truly home to her. I wanted to ask her more about the decisions that had brought her here, but the setting sun reminded me the evening was getting away from us. Although I wouldn't have minded being formally introduced, I wasn't sure she was ready to explain my presence to Charlie yet. "Are you finished?" she asked, when I didn't immediately bombard her with another series of questions. "Not even close, but your father will be home soon." "Charlie?" she gasped, then looked around bewildered, like she'd forgotten everything else in the world but us. I knew exactly how she felt. "How late is it?" she asked, and I hated to admit that our day was coming to an end. "It's twilight," I muttered, realizing that this used to be my favorite time of day. It meant the sun no longer hindered me or my family, and with the rest of the world getting ready for sleep, we felt freer somehow. Yet now, With Bella at my side, I found I wanted the day to keep going. She was truly changing everything about the way I look at the world. When I turned and saw her curiosity, her earnest desire to know even the darkest parts of my world, I felt as if all the love I felt for her was about to come pouring out. It's the safest time of day for us. The easiest time. But also the saddest, in a way. The end of another day, the return of the night. Darkness is so predictable, don't you think? I like the night. Without the dark, we'd never see the stars. Not that you see them here much, she added, and I laughed at the childlike way she nearly pouted. I've never admitted it to her. I didn't want her to think I was patronizing or belittling her, but I couldn't help but find her petulance endearing. The strangest things seemed to irritate her. Charlie will be here in a few minutes. So, unless you want to tell him that you'll be with me Saturday, I suggested, part of me still wishing she would tell him the truth. Thanks, but no thanks, she said stubbornly, grabbing her books. So is it my turn tomorrow, then? Certainly not, I said, feigning shock. I told you I wasn't done, didn't I? What more is there? She asked, a hint of her earlier nervousness coming back. You'll find out tomorrow, I teased, reaching to open her door for her. I was just beginning to enjoy the sound of her heart racing from my close proximity, when something completely unwelcome interrupted it. This is completely out of line, a dark voice thought. It was one I wished I didn't recognize so easily. He has no right to be here. Not good, I said under my breath, debating for a moment whether I should whisk Bella away to somewhere she wouldn't have to deal with what was surely coming. Of course, I knew that would only make things worse. What is it? Bella asked worriedly. I looked toward her and willed myself to remain calm. Another complication, I said, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. I quickly opened Bella's door and sat back firmly in my seat, determined to hold my ground steadily with Charlie so near and Billy's son beside him. This was not the time or place for confrontation. Charlie's around the corner, I said to Bella, though in all honesty, I was mostly reminding myself,